Hey guys, tonight we're not just telling stories. We're diving headfirst into the life of a medieval peasant, where winter isn't just a season, it's a villain trying to turn you into a human popsicle. Before we crawl under the blankets, smash that like button. If you're hooked, subscribe to never miss out, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is. I want to know who's brave enough to join me on this frostbitten journey. Now, dim the lights, forget your pumpkin spice latte, and brace yourself to shiver through the medieval cold. You think winter is all about poetic snowflakes and cozy sweater selfies? Wrong. In the Middle Ages, winter was a nightmare that slapped you in the face, with howling winds sharp as knives and darkness that swallowed hope whole. You, yes, you, are tossed into a flimsy hut thinner than paper, with no heater, no DoorDash, just a smoky fireplace and a pile of wilted turnips. Every night is a battle. Survive or let winter snicker over your frozen corpse. From bone-chilling Scandinavia to soggy Italy, peasants like you had to master survival tricks, from stacking stones to stay warm to praying you didn't freeze solid. This story will drag you through that hell, from traitorous fireplaces to the legacy that led to your cozy apartment today. Welcome to a medieval winter, where the cold isn't just an inconvenience, it's a cosmic punch to the face, aimed right at your pathetic little hut. You're shivering, teeth chattering, in a house so thin the wind whistles through the walls like it's mocking your existence. No insulation, no fancy fireplace, not even a cheap electric heater from Walmart. Just you, a pile of ragged cloth called clothes, and a fragile dream of not turning into an icicle before sunrise. Congratulations! You're the star of a horror movie called Winter Survival, but no director's yelling "cut" to save you. Picture this. You're stuck in a tiny village, surrounded by snow-covered fields or muddy bogs, depending on where fate decided to dump you. Winter isn't the season where you sip hot cocoa by the window, watching snow fall romantically. No, it's a ruthless enemy, itching to steal your life every night. You huddle in your hut, listening to the wind howl like a demonic rock concert, praying the roof doesn't cave in. Indoor temperature? Oh, if it's -10 outside, you're lucky to get a lavish -5 inside. It feels like you're living in a broken fridge where everything freezes. Your food, your feet, even your hope. But don't think winter's the same everywhere. Oh no, medieval cold varied, depending on which corner of Europe you were cursed to inhabit, and each place had its own special way to torture you. If you're in Scandinavia, Norway, or Sweden, congrats. You've won the golden ticket to an icy hell. Snow doesn't just fall here, it buries you. Blizzards so thick they could smother your house, turning you into a frozen dumpling in your own home. Norwegians built low, wind-tight clay ovens to trap the faint heat from their measly wood piles. They stacked stones around the fire, hoping that feeble warmth would keep their toes from turning black with frostbite. But wood was scarce, and you'd trudge through knee-deep snow to chop trees, only to find your haul too soggy to burn. Fun, right? Now, if you're in southern Europe, like Italy or southern France, don't get cocky. Winter here isn't a snowy wonderland. It's a wet, bone-chilling nightmare. Endless rain turns everything to mud, seeping through your thatch roof, dripping onto your face as you try to sleep. The temperature might not hit 0, but the damp cold slithers into your bones like a snake, making you shiver even in 3 layers of reeking wool. Italians didn't rely on clay ovens like their Nordic cousins. They built thick stone walls to block the sea winds. But stones are cold as ice, and if you didn't have enough wood, which you usually didn't, your house was just a glorified cave, minus the polar bears. No matter where you are, from Norway's snowy mountains to Italy's muddy plains, winter is an unforgiving survival test. No Google to search how to stay warm when your house is a wind sieve. No Amazon delivering electric blankets in 24 hours. You've got to fend for yourself, relying on wits and sheer stubbornness to keep the cold from swallowing you whole. In the north, you might learn to pack snow around your walls for natural insulation. Yes, using the very thing trying to kill you to fight it. In the South, you stuff straw into gaps, hoping it stops the rain from leaking through. But no matter what you do, the cold always finds a way in, like a seasoned thief smirking at your efforts. And don't even dream of comfort. Your house isn't a home. It's a battlefield where every night is a skirmish. You wake up with your breath freezing into fog, fingers stiff as sticks, and a bitter feeling that the sun's too lazy to rise and save you. Kids cry from the cold, old folks groan from aching joints, and you, yeah, you, just want to scream that you'd rather be a lord's slave than endure this damn winter. But screaming does what? The wind carries your voice away, and the cold stays, hugging you tighter than an ex who won't let go. The worst part? Winter isn't just your problem. It's the whole village's. If you can't keep the fire going, it's not just you who freezes. Your family, your neighbors, they're all at risk. A dark house with no smoke rising from the roof is a death sentence. Neighbors will rush over, not because they love you, but because if you die, they'll have to share their scarce wood and food with your orphaned kids. Medieval neighborly love isn't about handing out Halloween candy. It's about help them so we don't have to bury them. So, what do you do to survive? You learn to hate winter, but also how to outsmart it. In Norway, you might dig a small pit under the floor, line it with straw, and huddle inside like hibernating bears. In Italy, you burn dry leaves, hoping the smoke doesn't choke you before it warms you. You pray, not because you're pious, but because you're out of options. Every day you survive is a victory, but also a reminder. Winter hasn't given up. It's lurking, waiting for you to slip, ready to turn you into an ice statue in your own home. And if you think the cold is the worst of it, sorry, you're clueless. Your pathetic hut doesn't just have to fend off wind and snow. It has to survive its own idiotic design. Thin walls, leaky roofs, freezing dirt floors. Your house isn't a shelter. It's a death trap. But that's a story for the next part, where we'll dive into why your so-called home is more like a wind tunnel than a place to live. You think your house sucks because the windows creak, or the heater's on the fritz? Ha 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 ha. Let me yank you back to the Middle Ages, where your house is a cosmic joke, a wind tunnel with delusions of being a shelter. Your hut is a masterpiece of twigs, mud, and a fragrant dollop of cow dung. Charming, huh? The gaps in the walls are so wide, the wind strolls in like an uninvited guest, bringing bone-chilling cold. You stuff moss, rags, anything into the holes, praying they don't pop out at midnight, because if they do, you'll wake up to a blizzard in your living room. This house isn't a place to kick back with Netflix or dream of summer vacations. It's a war zone where you battle winter, and winter always plays dirty. A medieval peasant's house, or wattle and daub as the fancy call it, sounds posh but is just a woven wood frame, like a giant basket, slathered with mud, straw, and yes, animal dung. Cow poop, horse poop, whatever sticks, they used it. Not because they loved the barnyard aesthetic, but because dung was a cheap binder, always available. The result? A wall so flimsy the wind laughs at it, knowing one good gust could make your house shake like it's about to collapse. These walls are paper thin with no proper insulation. If it's -10 outside, you might get a generous -5 inside. Congrats, you've got a cozy home. Windows? Dream on. If you're lucky, you've got a small hole in the wall covered with animal hide or a coarse cloth, but the wind sneaks in like a ninja. The door's just a wooden slab, hung with rusty iron hinges, creaking every time it opens, reminding you life's never easy. And the floor, oh, the floor is just packed dirt, cold as a slab of ice. You scatter straw to soften it, but the straw molds fast, turning your floor into a petri dish of bugs and a stench like wet gym socks left to rot. But you don't just sit there whining. You turn this cramped, stinking space into a fortress against the cold. even if it looks more like a makeshift tent. The inside of your house is tiny, often just one room for the whole family, livestock, and your meager possessions. So you arrange it like playing Tetris, but instead of blocks, you're stacking people, animals, and junk. The fireplace is the centerpiece, not for romance, but because it's the only thing keeping you from freezing. Kids and the elderly, the weakest, get priority near the fire. You pile them on straw close to the flames, hoping the faint heat keeps them alive till morning. Babies are clutched tight by their mothers, sometimes wrapped in sheepskin, because if they get too cold, you might wake to silence instead of cries. Healthy adults, like you, if you're not coughing up blood, lie farther out, acting as living insulation for the family. You're crammed on another straw pile, a few steps from the fire, where the warmth is just a distant memory. The other corner is the livestock room. Yup, cows, goats, chickens, they're all inside because they're natural heaters. And leaving them outside is an invitation for thieves or wolves to feast. You rig up a hide curtain or coarse cloth to separate their corner, not for hygiene, but so the goat doesn't step on your face at midnight. But don't kid yourself. The smell of manure and fur permeates everything like a horror perfume you learn to love. To trap heat, you get creative like a broke NASA engineer. You stuff every gap in the walls, dry moss, grass, rags, even shed wool. Each hole is an enemy, and you fight them like Rambo, though your weapons are just dirty hands and dwindling patience. You hang coarse cloth curtains, really just old shirt scraps, over the door and window hole, hoping to block some wind. These curtains are soaked in smoke and grease, reeking like a bad BBQ joint, but they're your last line of defense. You also smear more mud and dung mix on the outer walls, like fragile armor. Yes, you're out in the freezing winter, hands numb, slathering poop on your house, telling yourself, this is the pinnacle of existence. Arranging the house isn't just about comfort. It's survival strategy. You keep the cooking pot near the fire, the only place warm enough to keep soup from freezing. Furniture, if you have any, like a wooden chest for clothes or a kitchen knife, is shoved against the walls to save space. But don't expect tidiness. Your house is a dump with straw strewn everywhere, chicken poop rolling around, and a few sticks you scavenged before the snow fell. Kids sleep piled like puppies because they're small, prone to cold, and you don't want to wake up to blue faces. You and your spouse, if you have one, sleep on the outer edge, taking the brunt of the drafts to shield the family. It's not love, it's survival math, the strong sacrifice, because if everyone dies, who's plowing? Come spring. This pathetic house is all you've got. You don't love it. Who could love a leaky, manure-scented shack? But you need it. Every day, you check the walls, patch gaps, add straw, like a soldier guarding a crumbling fort. You know winter doesn't forgive, and one strong gust could turn your home into rubble. But you keep at it, because the alternative is sleeping in the fields with wolves, and they're not nice enough to offer you hot cocoa. So you live crammed in this space that's part home, part barn, part trench. You learn to cherish rare moments, like when the fire burns steady without too much smoke, or when everyone sleeps without coughing their lungs out. But don't get smug about your luxury hut, that fireplace you rely on to survive. It's not your buddy. It's a fickle jerk, demanding 24/7 attention, and if you slack, it'll punish you by letting you freeze. Buckle up, because the story of the fireplace, the smoky heart of your home, is more dramatic than your pitiful shack. You think a fireplace is some romantic setup, gathering around a crackling fire, sipping hot chocolate, listening to the logs pop? Wipe that fantasy from your brain. In the Middle Ages, your fireplace isn't a friend. It's a high-maintenance savior, spewing smoke, demanding constant care like a stage diva. It's the only thing stopping you from becoming a frostbitten corpse in the night. But in return, it chokes you with smoke, stings your eyes, and makes you cough like you're auditioning to be cheap smoked meat in your own miserable hut. Picture this. Your house, a twig, mud, and cow dung combo, is already a disaster, but the fireplace is the epicenter of all drama. It's not some fancy hearth with a chimney like in fairy tales. Oh no, it's a dirt pit in the middle of the house, ringed with stones or broken bricks where you build a fire and pray it doesn't burn down your life. No chimney, so the smoke just swirls around like it owns the place, settling in your hair, clothes, and lungs. Your eyes are red, your nose runs, but you've got to love this fire, because if it goes out, you'll be meeting God, or the devil, depending on how pious you are. The fireplace is the heart of the house, but it's a heart that's hard to please. You guard it like a jealous lover, because one moment of neglect and the fire dies, letting the cold invade like a conquering army. Keeping it burning is a full-time job, from sunset to when the roosters haven't even thought about crowing. You stack wood, if you're lucky enough to have any, or anything that burns, and pray it doesn't fizzle out at midnight. But wood isn't always plentiful, especially when winter drags on like a bad movie with no editor. If you live in a forested area like northern England, you might chop some wood, but don't expect a neat, dry stack like in the movies. Your wood's usually soaked, smoking like a fog machine, making you cough like you're hacking up a lung. In wood-scarce regions like Europe's plains or Scotland's highlands, wood's a luxury, like a modern-day iPhone. So, what do you burn? Dried dung. Yup, cow dung, horse dung, goat dung, whatever you can scrape from the barn. You dry it under the autumn sun, stack it like treasure, and burn it. The smell? Like roasting an old sneaker in a microwave. But you don't complain. Dung burns long, it's cheap, and it keeps you from freezing. Besides dung, you use peat if you're near a bog, like in Ireland. Peat's dried bog soil, burning slow but smelling like a smoldering landfill. If you're out of dung and peat, you burn dry grass, straw, even torn clothes, anything to keep the fire alive. But each fuel's a gamble. Wet wood smokes out the house, dung chokes you, and straw burns so fast you're up every hour feeding the fire. You become a fire expert, knowing which burns hot, which lasts long, like a Michelin chef, but instead of steak, you're cooking your survival. And don't think lighting the fire is the end of it. The fireplace is a dangerous beast, like a wild animal you keep indoors. One stray spark, one gust through the wall gaps, and bam, your thatch roof's a torch. House fires are real, especially when your home's made of straw, dry wood, and blind faith. Winter winds scatter embers, and if they hit the roof, you're hosting an impromptu BBQ with your family as the main course. Plenty of peasants woke up to their house glowing like a Christmas tree, then ran into the fields in their pajamas, a reeking wool tunic, and whatever dignity they had left. To avoid disaster, you learn to control the fireplace like a pilot flying a plane. You build a stone ring around it, high enough to contain the fire, but not so tight it traps smoke. You keep a bucket of dirt or water nearby, though water often freezes at night. You master banking the fire, covering hot coals with ash to keep them smoldering till morning, like tucking it in. Come dawn, you blow on the coals, praying they're still alive, because starting a fire from flint takes an hour and risks singeing your beard, if you've got one. But the fireplace isn't just a tool, it's the center of life. You cook on it, boil water, warm your hands, even stare at the flames like it's medieval TV. The family gathers around, not for bonding, but because it's the only spot where your toes don't fall off from frostbite. Kids learn to count by stacking wood, adults tell ghost stories by the glow, and everyone coughs from the smoke, a cozy family activity. But don't let your guard down. A nice nap by the fire could be your last if the flames spread. The smoke's a problem on its own. It doesn't just sting your eyes, it coats everything. Your clothes smell like a burnt grill, your hair like you've been camping for a month. Smoke's a silent killer too. Breathe too much and you're coughing blood, especially if you're already weak. But smoke has upsides. It repels bugs, keeping lice and fleas at bay. You learn to live with it, like an annoying uncle, irritating, but you'd miss it if it was gone. You tend the fireplace like it's your kid, but it never says thank you. Every day, you gather wood, dry dung, haul peat, stoke flames, douse embers, all to keep this fickle beast happy. You know if it dies, your family's hugging for the last time in the cold. But you do it because you're a medieval peasant, stubborn, defiant, and used to life treating you like garbage. Now you see the fireplace isn't a joke. It's a savior and a harsh loan shark. And if you think cramming into this smoky shack is bad enough, wait till you hear this. You're sleeping in a human lasagna, sandwiched between a snoring uncle and a farting goat, just to avoid freezing before dawn. Get ready, because the story of keeping warm is grimmer than tending this fire. You think cramming is squeezing into the middle seat on a budget flight? Ha 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 ha. Let me toss you into a medieval winter where privacy's a cruel joke and you sleep in a human lasagna wedged tight between an uncle snoring like thunder and a goat farting like clockwork, layered like a human burrito, just to not freeze. One wrong move, like rolling away to dodge Aunt Ethel's onion breath. And you're the jerk who pushed Grandma into the draft, earning glares from the whole family. Welcome to the art of communal sleeping, where the cold turns your family into a smelly, desperate pile, clinging to each other's warmth. Your hut, a mud, dung, and hope combo, is already a wreck, but when night falls, it's a frozen nightclub where everyone piles in to survive. Forget private rooms or comfy beds. You don't have a bed, just a moldy straw pile on the icy dirt floor. This straw heap is the communal bed for everyone, babies, grandparents, plus a few furry animals for extra heat. Privacy? Hilarious. If you dream of a quiet corner, the cold slaps you awake, reminding you that someone else's body heat is your only ticket to survival. So you sleep like lasagna, layer upon layer, like an Italian dish, but instead of cheese, it's sweat, sheep wool, and despair. Kids, small and prone to cold, are the precious filling, tucked in the middle. They're held tight by moms or sisters, wrapped in hides, because one stray draft could turn them blue by dawn. The elderly, frail, and coughing also get prime spots near the fire, despite the smoke choking them. You, if you're healthy enough not to hack up blood, are on the outer edges, a living shield for the family. The wind bites your back like a wolf, but you grit your teeth, because if the kids or grandma die, who's working the fields come spring? This human lasagna isn't just a warmth strategy, it's a patience test. You're squished between an uncle snoring so loud the straw shakes and a goat that farts biochemical warfare. Moving is a nightmare. Want to roll over because your back hurts? Careful, you might shove your sister into the cold where frost waits like an assassin. Need to stretch your legs? Good luck, they're tangled in Grandma's hair, and one tug earns you a midnight scolding. You learn to lie still like a corpse, barely breathing, because every twitch is a gamble with the family's survival. But don't think this cramped scene is all misery. In this smelly, smoky, snoring pile, there are moments where you, bitterly, find a flicker of warmth, not from bodies, but from whispered stories or mumbled songs. When the family's huddled on the straw, firelight dancing on the walls, you hear your mom retell a folktale about a giant wolf eating naughty kids, or your uncle spin a yarn about a night slaying a dragon, though the village knows he's never left the pasture. These stories, silly as they are, distract from the cold, the hunger, and let you pretend you're at a family party, not wrestling death. Kids love ghost stories, like spirits wandering the snow, seeking warmth, but bringing only doom. You tell them to scare the kids into staying still, because if they roll away, you don't want to dig a grave come morning. Adults share grittier tales, like last year's harvest, when frost killed the barley, or the stingy neighbor who hoarded wood and got shunned. These stories aren't just for fun. They're reminders. Survival's a team effort, and no one gets to screw it up. Songs creep into the winter nights too. Not sappy Hollywood ballads, but hoarse lullabies moms sing to babies, or work songs the family mumbles to keep spirits up. A common one's about spring when snow melts and grass grows, pure fantasy. But you need fantasy to not go mad. Sometimes everyone sings together, voices raspy from smoke, drowning out the biting cold. These rare moments are the glue that makes the human lasagna a family, if only for a night. But don't get too dreamy. Cramming's full of drama. Fights over sleeping spots are daily. Who gets the warm middle? Who's stuck in the drafty edge? Kids whine about being squashed. Adults bicker over who snores loudest. You've seen your mom and Aunt Ethel nearly throw punches because Ethel demanded the spot by the fire, even though she got it last week. You play referee because if everyone's fighting, no one sleeps, and tomorrow's a long day in frozen hell. Sleeping positions are strategic. The middle's paradise, warm, safe, but tight as a sardine can. The edge is punishment, freezing and windy, but at least you're not suffocating. You usually take the edge, not because you're noble, but because you're young, strong, and if you complain, everyone says, be a man. Babies and the sick always get the fire's center, but sometimes you're jealous, craving that faint warmth without the pain. But you don't budge. You grit your teeth, because the unspoken rule is, the weak get priority, the strong sacrifice. Cramming isn't just sleeping, it's living. You learn to tolerate sweat smells, snoring, and the nightmares of the person next to you, muttering about endless winters. You forgive your uncle for spilling water on the straw, or the goat for chewing your sleeve. You survive because winter gives no other choice. So, you lie there in the human lasagna, half warm, half miserable, loving and hating the people around you. But don't think cramming's enough to survive. Your house isn't just people. You're sharing it with cows, goats, chickens, the smelly, furry roommates you can't live without. Brace yourself because the story of these animals will make you cry harder than this sleeping arrangement. You think living with a roommate who skips showers is hell? Ha ha ha, let me throw you into a medieval winter, where your roommates are cows, pigs, chickens, not cute pets, but reeking furry heaters that keep your toes from turning black. Sure, they stink enough to make you want a permanent nose plug, but the warmth from Bessie the cow or Porky the pig is why you're not frostbitten. Welcome to cohabiting with livestock, where you're both grateful and cursing these four-legged housemates. Your hut, a mud, straw, and smoke disaster, is bad enough. But when winter hits, it's a barn and a house rolled into one. You don't have a choice. Leaving livestock outside is begging wolves, thieves, or the cold to kill them by dawn. Losing a cow or pig means your family starves, because they're not just heaters, they're your meat bank. So you open the door, ushering Bessie, Porky, and a flock of scruffy chickens inside, like you're hosting a hibernation sleepover. But don't expect a cute Disney scene. This is a party of stench, manure, and feathers everywhere. Livestock are natural heaters, and you need them more than ever. A cow radiates heat like a portable furnace, warming a corner of the house by a few degrees. Pigs, despite their filth, are rolling heat packs, and chickens huddle together, forming a small but useful feather pile. You arrange them in a corner near the wall, far enough from the fire to avoid roasting them. Sometimes you lie close to Bessie, feeling her hot breath, and think, "Thanks, girl, but please don't poop on the straw." Because trust me, they will. Often and without warning. The smell hits you first. Your house now smells like a manure brewery, with top notes of wet cow, dirty pig, and moldy chicken. You try to adjust, but every deep breath makes you question why you haven't passed out. To control the stench, you do what you can, but don't expect your house to smell like a candle shop. You scatter fresh straw on the floor, hoping it absorbs some odor, but it gets wet and moldy fast, turning into a bacterial carpet. You hang dry grass or pine needles near the fire, hoping the burnt smell masks the barnyard, but you end up with a mix of smoke and manure like living in a trash incinerator. Manure's the second nightmare. Bessie isn't potty trained, and Porky treats the floor like his personal toilet. You sweep the dung to a corner with a wooden shovel, or your hands, because rubber gloves aren't a thing. Fresh manure gets pushed to the barn area, but your house is small, so it's just a few steps from your bed. If it's not too cold, you toss it outside, but when snow buries the door, you pile it inside, like a grotesque sculpture. Dry manure is more useful. You dry it in autumn sun, then burn it in the fireplace. Yup, you're burning cow dung indoors, both to stay warm and to remind you your life's hit rock bottom. But living with livestock isn't just about smells. Disease is a real threat, like a ticking bomb. You sleep next to Bessie, breathing her air, touching her bug-infested fur. Parasites like lice and fleas jump from animals to you, turning your skin into a buffet. You scratch till you bleed, and if you're not careful, scratches get infected, leading to fever or worse. Manure's a germ factory too. Inhaling dry dung dust can make you cough black phlegm, or you get gut diseases if dirty hands touch your mouth. And your hands are always dirty because clean water's rarer than gold. Kids with weak immune systems catch diarrhea or skin diseases like scabies from playing near the chickens. You try to prevent disease, but your tools are limited. You wash hands in cold water when it's not frozen, but no soap means it's barely clean. You burn time near the fire, believing the smoke kills germs, but it's mostly wishful thinking. If someone's sick, you isolate them in a corner, meaning 2 feet away, because your house is tiny. You check livestock, cleaning matted fur or open sores, but medieval vet care is just pray the cow doesn't die. If Bessie coughs or shits blood, you know the whole house is at risk, but all you can do is pray and hope. Living with livestock is a patience test. Chickens roost on your head at night, pigs nibble your sleeve, and Bessie sometimes kicks over the soup pot. You spent all day making that soup. You want to scream, but you hold back, because they're your only assets against starvation. You learn to coexist, like with an annoying coworker, frustrating, but you can't fire them. Sometimes you're grateful. Bessie's hot breath melts the frost on your face, and the chicken's clucking reminds you morning's here. You're still alive. But don't romanticize this human-animal bond. You don't pet Bessie out of love. You need her alive for warmth and milk. You keep Porky not because he's cute, but because he's spring's bacon. Livestock are tools, but also reluctant teammates, sharing the cold and misery. You name them, Bessie, Porky, to feel less alone, but you know this friendship ends with a butcher's knife. Living with livestock is a dance, necessary, miserable, warm, and stinking. You learn to sweep dung, endure smells, and scratch bites, because winter offers no alternatives. But don't think these animals are enough to keep you warm. You still have to turn yourself into a walking laundry pile, wearing every scrap of cloth, from rough wool to smelly hides, to fend off the cold trying to devour you. Get ready, because the story of winter fashion is grimmer than sharing a room with a cow. You think fashion is flaunting a cashmere sweater on Instagram or snagging Black Friday deals? Let me drag you to a medieval winter where fashion is piling on every piece of clothing, looking like a lumpy sack and smelling like death. Laundry? A pipe dream. Dirty clothes are your insulation, and if you survive the night without freezing, congrats. Your stench is a badge of honor. Welcome to the Peasants' Runway, where the Fall-Winter collection has one theme. Don't let the cold bury you. Your hut, mud, dung, and smoke central, is a nightmare. But when the winter wind howls through the wall gaps, clothes are your last defense against a frosty grave. Forget a neat wardrobe or color coordination. Your closet's a pile of coarse cloth, frayed wool, and animal hides, all reeking like a forgotten butcher shop. You don't pick outfits based on what's cute today, but what'll keep my fingers from falling off. The answer? Wear everything. You layer every scrap, from a torn tunic to a moth-eaten wool cloak, like a living onion, each layer a middle finger to winter. Try killing me now. The tunic's your base, like a medieval t-shirt, knee-length, sewn from rough wool or linen that scratches like sandpaper. You wear it all the time, even sleeping, because stripping in this cold is suicide. Over the tunic, you throw on a wool cloak, a luxury if you have one, heavy as a blanket, but warm. If you're lucky, you've got sheepskin or rabbit fur draped over your shoulders like a fake fur coat, but instead of chic, it smells like a barnyard. You tie it all with leather strips or rope because buttons are future tech. The result? You look like a walking laundry bag, waddling like a snowman, but at least you're breathing. Washing clothes is a fantasy. Clean water's scarce, often frozen, and you've got no soap or washing machine. One wash could take all day, boiling water, scrubbing on rocks, then drying in cold that turns clothes stiff as boards. So, you let your clothes stay dirty, letting grease, sweat, and smoke build up like natural insulation. The smell? You're used to it. The whole village reeks the same, so no one judges. In fact, dirtier clothes are thicker, warmer. You tell yourself, this stench is the smell of survival. But don't kid yourself. If a 21st century nose sniffed you, they'd faint before saying, take a bath. Clothes tear constantly because rough wool wears out fast, and you can't afford new ones. So, you patch them like a haute couture designer, but with bone needles and coarse wool thread. You scavenge every scrap, from Grandpa's old tunic to Mom's torn shawl, to mend holes. No patterns, just cover the wind's entry points. Your patchwork looks like a Picasso painting, but who cares, as long as your skin's not exposed to frost's bite. If you run out of cloth, you stuff straw or wool into holes, like a DIY insulation hack, though it itches like a lice convention. Weaving's part of life, but don't picture a museum-worthy loom. You or your mom sit by a creaky wooden frame, weaving wool from your sheep. It's grueling, taking weeks for one piece of cloth enough for a tunic. The wool's rough, full of burrs, and if you slack, the fabric's lumpy as a village road. Linen from flax is smoother but rare, because growing flax takes land you need for turnips. Once woven, you sew by hand, stitching sloppily, because no one taught you proper tailoring. The result's a lopsided tunic, but you wear it, because you've got no choice. Recycling clothes is an unwritten law. Grandpa's oversized tunic? Cut it down for you. Your torn tunic? Chop it up for the kids. Kids wear hand-me-downs, baggy as sacks, to save fabric. You see your little sister waddling in a tunic, dragging on the ground, sleeves covering her hands, and you laugh, not because it's cute, but because it reminds you the whole family shares 3 outfits. If a garment's too shredded, you use it to patch the house or stuff wall gaps because nothing goes to waste. You learn to love every scrap like it's your lifeline. Clothing differences between men, women, and kids exist, but not for style, for function. Men like you wear shorter tunics for work, plowing, chopping wood, or shoveling cow dung. Your cloak's heavy, tied tight, because you're outside facing the wind. Women wear longer tunics, almost dresses, to keep their legs warm and often wrap wool scarves around their heads like medieval shawls. They need warmth while cooking or weaving by the smoky fire. Kids wear cut-down adult clothes, patched to fit, but always wrapped in extra hides or wool because they chill easily. You see the neighbor's girl shivering in her dad's shortened tunic and think, at least she's got something. Shoes are a luxury. You don't have sleek leather boots or sneakers. If you're lucky, you've got rough leather shoes, sewn from cowhide, hard as wood and worn out in weeks. Otherwise, you wrap rags or sheepskin around your feet, tied with rope, like homemade socks. Rags soak through fast, leaving your feet numb, but you deal, because barefoot is suicide. Kids often go without shoes, just rags, and you hear them cry from the cold. But you can't do much except give them your own rags. Your fashion isn't for show, it's for survival. You wear every scrap, from frayed wool to stinking hides, and learn to love the deathly smell wafting from you. You patch, weave, recycle every rag, like a survival artist. But don't think layering up is enough to beat the cold. You still have to eat, stuffing yourself with turnip soup and rock-hard bread, because the cold doesn't just attack your skin, it goes for your guts. Get ready, because the story of winter dining is grimmer than your smelly wardrobe. You think dining is scarfing a burger with fries, scrolling TikTok under neon lights? Ha 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 ha. Let me yank you to a medieval winter, where eating is gorging like it's your last meal on earth. You shovel watery turnip soup and black bread hard as stone, like you're binging Netflix, but instead of shows, you're watching your life flash by. Heavy, fatty food is your secret weapon. It burns slow, keeping you warm as you lie on your straw pile, dreaming of a fresh cabbage. Welcome to the peasant's kitchen, where the menu has one item, survival, and everything tastes like despair. Your hut, mud, smoke, and cow central, is a nightmare, but the kitchen's a dark comedy stage. No fridge, no oven, no Instacart delivering groceries. Your only cookware's a blackened iron pot hanging over the fire, where you make everything from soup to porridge, and sometimes hot water to wash hands, if the water's not frozen. Your menu's as repetitive as a one-hit wonders playlist. Turnip soup, barley porridge, black bread, and if you're lucky, a bit of salted meat. Sound boring? Good, because boring's a privilege. When the pantry's empty, you'll miss that turnip soup like a high school crush. Eating isn't just about filling your belly, it's about fighting the cold. Winter's a monster, not just biting your skin, but sucking energy from your bones. Fatty, heavy food's the only way to keep your body burning, like an internal fireplace. Turnip soup, dull as it sounds, is your canvas. You toss in turnips, onions, a dab of pork fat, if you have any, and dried thyme to mask the moldy smell. You cook it over the fire, stirring with a wooden spoon, praying it doesn't burn. Black bread made from barley or rye is hard as rock, needing a soak in soup to chew. But you eat, because every bite's fuel to last the night. Meat's a luxury, like a Louis Vuitton bag today. If you have a pig, you slaughter it in autumn, salting the meat to last. Salted pork's tough as rubber, salty as seawater, but you savor every bite like fine wine, because it's fatty, burns long, and warms you from the inside out. Salted fish, if you're near the sea, is a rare treat, though its fishy stench makes the family grimace. Cow or goat milk's as precious as gold, but only available when the animals aren't stressed from cold. Cheese? If you manage a hard cheese block, you guard it like treasure, nibbling only when truly desperate. Preserving food's a survival puzzle. No freezer, no airtight jars. Autumn's when you work like a dog to prep for winter, because an empty pantry means starvation. Turnips, onions, and root crops go in a dirt cellar, a pit under the floor, lined with straw to keep cool. This cellar's your treasure, but also a rat buffet. You check it daily, shooing rodents, praying the crops don't mold. Meat's salted in wooden barrels, buried in salt like snow, but if salt runs out, you dry it on racks by the fire, hoping it doesn't spoil. Drying's common but tricky. You hang meat, fish, or sliced turnips on strings near the fire, where smoke dries and repels bugs. But the smoke gives meat a burnt tire taste, and if you hang it wrong, it molds green. Fruit, if you have any, dries into chewy leather. You chew it, pretending it's candy, but it's just shriveled apples. Grain, barley, wheat, is stored in cloth sacks hung high to dodge rats, but dampness breeds mold, and you often find weevils in your flour when you open the sack. When the pantry runs dry, and it always does by late winter, you turn to backup foods, like you're on a medieval survivor. Wild roots, like parsnips or weeds, are dug up, boiled soft, and eaten with a face like you're chewing paper. Tree bark, like birch, gets scraped for its inner layer, ground into powder, and mixed into porridge. Tastes like wood, but fills you. Dried herbs like thyme or nettles are chewed or steeped, not for flavor, but to distract from hunger. Sometimes you eat dried leaves or forest mushrooms, knowing they might give you diarrhea, or worse. You learn to gamble with your stomach, because hunger's scarier than poison. Eating's not just survival, it's ritual. The family gathers around the soup pot, sharing bread, no one taking more than their share, though the kids' hungry eyes beg. You share, not because you're kind, but because if someone dies, the family weakens. Meals are rare moments you feel alive, even if the soup cools fast and the bread hurts your jaw. You tell stories, like the great harvest 2 years ago when you ate meat twice a week, to forget the watery slop in front of you. But don't expect cozy dinners. Fights break out over the last turnip, or when your uncle sneaks a bite of salted meat. You play referee, though you want to smack both sides. Kids cry from hunger, and you give them your share, not because you're heroic, but because their wails drive you nuts. You learn to eat slow, chewing thoroughly, tricking your stomach into thinking you're full. But you're never full, just alive enough for the next meal. Medieval dining's a war, from preserving turnips to chewing bark. You gorge, not from greed, but because the cold's waiting for you to weaken. But don't think turnip soup's enough to beat winter. You still have to get crafty like an engineer, using hay boxes and hot stones to stay warm, because the cold doesn't just hit your belly, it attacks your sleep. Brace yourself, because the story of these makeshift inventions is grimmer than your bark porridge. You think innovation's building a self-brewing coffee maker or hacking Netflix without a subscription? Let me drag you to a medieval winter, where genius is figuring out how not to freeze with a pile of straw and some rocks. Hay boxes keep your soup warm. Hot stones tucked under blankets are portable heaters. Sounds cozy, right? Try not burning your feet or setting your straw bed ablaze. Welcome to the peasant's Shark Tank, where you pitch DIY creations like hay boxes and hot stones, not for profit, but to avoid winter sending you to the grave. Your hut, mud, smoke, and cow stench central, is a disaster, but winter's cold is relentless. The smoky fireplace, your reeking clothes, and the human lasagna barely keep you alive. You need new tricks, and the hay box is a game changer. It's not a pet rabbit's lunchbox, but a wooden crate or woven basket stuffed with hay or straw like a medieval thermos. You pour hot turnip soup into a clay pot, nestle it in the box, cover it with more hay, and bam, soup stays warm for hours, not 5 minutes. Sounds easy? Good, because it takes half a day to pack the hay, and if you mess up, the soup molds, turning dinner into sewer water. The hay box isn't just for soup. You use it to keep barley porridge warm, hold hot water, or even warm your hands with hot stones inside. It's like a crock pot, but powered by hay and hope. You drag it out every night when the cold's brutal, because cold soup's a tragedy. Not just for hunger, but because cold food makes you shiver more, like winter needs extra help torturing you. But hay boxes aren't cheap. The hay has to be dry, clean, and swapped often, because damp hay turns the box into a germ fest. You gather hay in autumn, store it in the barn, but rats and bugs love it, so you guard it like gold. Hot stones are your second stroke of brilliance, deserving a stupid but effective DIY medal. You pick smooth river stones, ones that won't crack when heated, roast them red hot in the fire, then wrap them in rags or hides before tucking them into your straw bed. The stones radiate heat like mini heaters, warming your feet, and if you're smart, you place a few around the kids to keep them from turning blue. Sounds snug? Hold up. 2 hot stones burn through rags, scorch your tunic, or worse, set your house on fire. You've woken at midnight, smelling smoke, to find your straw smoldering because a stone was over-enthusiastic. You douse it with freezing water, curse, and swear to be careful next time. But you know you'll do it again, because the cold leaves no choice. Hot stones are a nightly ritual, especially when the wind howls like a banshee. You heat them before bed, wrap them tight, and place them strategically, feet, stomach, or near babies. But they cool fast, so you're up at 2 a.m., shivering, reheating them. You become a stone expert, round, smooth, fist-sized, because small ones cool too quick, and big ones are heavy as bricks. You master wrapping. Too few rags, you burn. Too many, no heat. It's an art, and you're the Picasso of desperation. Beyond hay boxes and stones, you try other hacks, shared by villagers like medieval TikTok, yelling over fences or whispering at winter festivals. A popular one's the clay pot heater. You take an old ceramic pot, fill it with hot coals from the fire, loosely cap it, and set it near your bed. It radiates slow heat, like a mini heater, but if it tips, coals scatter, and your house becomes a barbecue. You've seen a neighbor lose their roof to a coal pot, so you're cautious, but you use it, because warmth's worth the risk. Leather pouches with hot coals are another trick, like a portable coal pot. You stuff coals into a cowhide bag, tie it tight, and hug it like a teddy bear. That could burn you. These pouches are for brutal nights or when you're outside, checking traps. You clutch it, savoring the heat, but worry the leather will tear, turning you into a human torch. Pouches are rare because good leather's for shoes or tunics, so only rich houses, ones with 2 cows, make them. These hacks spread fast, like Twitter memes. You learned the hay box from Grandma, someone saw you use it, and the village copied. Hot stones are universal across Europe, from Norway to France, because stones are free and cold's impartial. Clay pots and leather pouches vary by region, more common where potters or spare hides exist. You pick up new tips from a passing salt trader or an ant from the next village, trying them instantly because every degree of warmth is another day alive. But not every hack works. You once tried stuffing hot straw into your tunic, a tip from a drunk, and itched for a week from bugs. Using hay boxes and hot stones is daily, especially from December to February, when the cold stabs your bones. The hay box comes out every meal, because warm soup's the day's only comfort. Hot stones are nightly, sometimes daytime for sick kids or adults. You run it like an assembly line. Heat stones, wrap rags, place in bed, repeat. But you're always scared. Scared stones crack, hay molds, coals spill. Every hack's a gamble, and you're a lousy gambler, because winter always wins. These crude inventions prove you're not dumb. No electricity, no engineers, but you turn straw, stones, and coals into weapons against cold. You're proud, for a split second, before the cold reminds you pride doesn't keep you warm. You keep going, because stopping is death. Now, you see hay boxes and hot stones aren't a joke, but don't think they're enough for a good night's sleep. You still have to wake up midnight, tend the fire, patch wall gaps, like a soldier who never rests. Brace yourself, because the story of shift sleeping is grimmer than your stone heating routine. You think sleep's a basic right, curling up in warm blankets, scrolling Instagram before drifting off? Let me toss you into a medieval winter where sleep's a luxury pricier than the latest iPhone. You take turns tending the fire, cursing the skin-slicing cold, and stumbling to avoid stepping on the goat at 3 a.m. Kids, grandparents, everyone's on coal duty, because one slip and the whole family freezes like meat in a locker. Welcome to shift sleeping, where you fight not just winter, but your own drooping eyelids. Your hut, rags, smoke, and cow stench central is hell, But when night falls, it's a survival battlefield. The fireplace is the house's heart, but it's a needy one, demanding round-the-clock care. If the fire dies, the cold storms in like a thief, and by morning, you might wake to loved ones blue and still. So, a full night's sleep is a pipe dream. You organize the family like a guard squad, splitting shifts to keep the fire burning, patch wind gaps, and ensure the goat doesn't knock over the soup pot. Sound exhausting? Good, because you'll be drained before dawn. Shift sleeping isn't a fun, who's staying up tonight game. It's a survival tactic, like playing Russian roulette with frost. The family divides shifts, usually 2 or 3 hours each, depending on how many can stay awake. You, if young and healthy, get the graveyard shift, like 1 to 3 a.m., when the cold bites your bones like a wolf. Grandparents, if sharp enough, take early shifts, like 5 a.m., because they sleep less and wake anyway. Kids, even the 8-year-old, pitch in, because this isn't daycare, and everyone's a soldier. You see the neighbor's kid, eyes stinging from smoke, wobbling with a log, and think, at least he hasn't fallen into the fire. Shift duties are simple, but brutal. You tend the fire, adding wood or dried dung, blowing on coals to keep them alive. You check wall gaps, restuffing moss or rags if they've popped out. You kick the goat away from the straw if it tries to butt in, and pray the thatch roof doesn't leak. But don't think you're chilling like a security guard. You're shivering, eyes burning from smoke, and every minute awake is a fight against sleep, tugging you down. You curse the cold, the chicken clucking at midnight, and yourself for not dying sooner to skip this misery. The mental toll of shift sleeping is a punch to the face. You're exhausted, like running a marathon with no finish line. Sleep deprivation makes you cranky, like the world owes you a nap. You snap at kids for spilling water, argue with mom for adding wood wrong, and glare at your uncle snoring like you're saying, "Shut up, you useless lump." But you're not a monster, just a zombie fueled by adrenaline and fading hope. The whole family's the same, so fights flare up daily, and you learn to apologize because bickering doesn't keep you warm. Lack of sleep dulls you, not like "forgot my Wi-Fi password" dull, but forgetting to tie your shoes, ripping your tunic, or spilling the soup pot. You've seen a neighbor, too tired, toss a dirty rag into the fire, nearly burning the house down. You try to stay sharp, but your brain's like a car out of gas, barely chugging. Kids are worse. They're groggy, dropping wood, crying from exhaustion. You want to hug them, but you're tired too, so you growl, "Get it done." You hate yourself for it, but winter doesn't let you be kind. To fight sleep, you use every trick, like a modern coffee addict without a Starbucks. You chew dried mint leaves if you have them, for the bitter kick that jolts you awake. Mint's rare, so you hoard it from summer, hiding it like treasure. If it's gone, you chew thyme or nettles. Bitter is medicine, but it works. You drink cold water, though it makes you shiver more, or pinch yourself till you bruise, just to stay conscious. Another trick's pacing. You shuffle around the house, dodging the cow, muttering curses like a lunatic. Sometimes you sing softly, like a springtime ballad. To fool yourself the cold will end, though you know it won't. Folk herbs are a lifeline, but no miracle cure. Mint leaves, overused, give you stomach aches, but you chew anyway because dozing off's a death sentence. Thyme, steeped in hot water, makes a horse tea that keeps you alert but tastes like bottled misery. You learned these from Mom, who learned from Grandma, like a family recipe for not freezing. But herbs are scarce, and when they're gone, you're left with willpower, also running low, like your turnip stash. Sleep deprivation doesn't just wreck nights, it ruins days. You clean the cow stall, but move like a zombie, spilling dung everywhere. You patch walls but shake, stuffing moss crooked, letting wind sneak in. You chop wood but nearly hack your foot because your eyes blur like a busted TV. Kids are worse. They drop water buckets, nap while gathering straw, and you cover for them, though you want to collapse. Daytime chores, from sweeping to checking traps, become torture, and you wonder, why bother living like this? But you don't stop, because stopping's death. Shift sleeping's a dance with the cold, and you're a terrible dancer. You stay up, tend fires, chew bitter leaves, curse life, just to keep the family alive. You're exhausted, irritable, but you do it because you're a medieval peasant. Stubborn, defiant, used to life kicking you in the face. Think sleep deprivation's the final price for surviving winter. Winter's got another twist. You have to breathe like a ninja, sipping tiny gulps through your nose so the cold doesn't shred your lungs. Welcome to the next survival lesson, where every breath's a battle and one mistake buys you a one-way ticket to the graveyard. Get ready, because the story of breath control's bitterer than those sleepless nights tending coals. You think breathing's natural, like taking a deep yoga breath and chilling? Let me drag you to a medieval winter, where every breath's a gamble with your lungs and breathing wrong's like buying a ticket to meet God. You don't gulp air, no way. You sip it through your nose, slow and shallow, like a ninja sneaking past guards, because one mouthful of icy wind can make you cough out your soul before February. Welcome to the art of breathing to live, where you guard your lungs like a treasure chest in a house reeking of cows and smoke. Your hut, straw, dung, and wind central, is hell, but winter air's like a razor blade. Temperatures plummet below zero, winds scream through wall gaps, carrying cold sharp as a sword. Take a deep breath. Congrats! You've just invited pneumonia over. Cold air floods your lungs, triggering coughs that, if you're already weak from hunger, fatigue, or fireplace smoke, can turn into fever, then death. You saw the neighbor, Big John, strong as an ox, cough blood after a night outside, and thought, "No thanks, I'm not ready to die." So you breathe shallow, through your nose, like you're holding your breath to avoid Bessie the cow's manure stink. Breathing like a ninja isn't instinct. You learn it like learning not to step on chickens at midnight. Kids are taught early. Breathe through your nose, slow. Don't let the cold eat your lungs. You practice standing by the fire, sipping tiny breaths, feeling the air warm in your nose before hitting your lungs. Mouth breathing? Suicide. It lets cold air stab your chest, leaving you shivering like a wet dog. You wrap a wool scarf around your face, if you have one, to filter air, but the scarf gets wet from breath, turning into a thin ice mask, making you look like a clumsy bandit. You breathe, slow, steady, and bitterly realize even breathing's a chore. But breathing writes only half the battle. Winter's a breeding ground for disease, and your lungs are target number one. Pneumonia, coughs, fevers, they lurk like wolves in the snow, waiting for you to weaken. No doctors, no antibiotics, just folk remedies and prayers. A common trick's rubbing sheep fat on your chest, like medieval vapor-rub, but smellier. You melt fat from an autumn-slaughtered sheep and slather it thick, hoping it warms and soothes coughs. It reeks like burnt tires sticking to your tunic, but you deal, because it keeps your chest warm, easing hacks. You rub it on the kids, too, despite their whining about itchiness, and pray the fat lasts till March. Onion tea's another grim remedy, as nasty as it sounds, but effective. You slice onions, rare survivors in your cellar. Boil them with water over the fire, adding dried thyme if you've got it. The tea's bitter, pungent, and makes you gag, but it warms your throat, eases coughs, and might fend off pneumonia. You sip it, grimacing like drinking poison, but force the family to drink, especially the elderly, whose coughs sound like death knells. Thyme syrup's a lifesaver, too. You steep dried thyme in hot water, strain it through coarse cloth, and sip slowly. It tastes like swallowing a field, but it soothes lungs, and you hoard thyme from summer, guarding it like treasure, because running out's a disaster. Spotting sickness is a survival skill because you've got no thermometer or WebMD. A persistent cough lingering past a few days is a red flag. You hear your kids' dry, sharp hacks and know onion tea's urgent. Fever's worse. You touch mom's forehead, feel it burning, and your heart sinks because winter fevers often end in graves. Pale skin, blue lips, or wheezing are alarms too. You saw Aunt Ethel cough green phlegm, dead in 3 days, so you watch like a detective, though you just want to sleep. If someone's sick, you isolate them in a corner, 2 steps away, because your house is tiny, and brew herb tea, praying they pull through. These remedies aren't miracle drugs. Onion tea warms you but won't cure high fevers. Sheep fat insulates but doesn't kill germs. You know they're weak, but you do them, because doing nothing drives you mad. You rub fat, brew tea, breathe shallow, like a ritual to trick yourself you've got control over winter. But you don't. Winter's always the winner, and every day you survive's a miracle. Living with the cold teaches other tricks. You wrap a scarf around your neck, though it smells like dirty laundry, to keep your throat warm. You chew dried garlic if you have it, because Mom says it wards off sickness, though it makes you smell like a vampire's nightmare. You avoid going out in high winds, because wind's a killer, and if you must, you wrap sheepskin over your face, looking like a thief but warmer. Kids learn the same. You see them breathing through noses, rubbing sheep fat, grimacing at onion tea like mini versions of you, but you don't laugh because they're learning to live. Sickness doesn't just threaten lungs. Coughs weaken you, fevers starve you, and if the whole family's sick, who tends the fire? Who patches gaps? You saw a neighbor's family, all coughing, no one standing, fire out. They didn't make it past the week, so you force yourself to stay healthy, though your eyes blur from fatigue and your lungs ache from smoke. You teach kids to spot bad coughs, make Mom drink tea despite her complaints, because you know, one falls, the whole family might follow, breathing like a ninja, rubbing sheep fat, sipping onion tea, your survival trifecta, but fragile as straw in wind. You do it all, not from faith, but fear. Fear of coughs, fevers, waking to find the kids not breathing. You live, one shallow breath, one bitter sip, like a defeated warrior who won't quit. Now you see breathing's no joke. But don't think guarding your lungs wins winter. You still need the village, neighbors you love and hate, because no one survives alone. Get ready, because the story of community's harsher than sipping air. You think going solo, like a lone wolf on Netflix, is cool? Let me toss you into a medieval winter where the cold laughs at your independence. Your village is a messy extended family, full of people you want to punch but need to hug. You share coals, food, even your cow-scented corner. Hate the stingy neighbor? Too bad, he's why you're not frozen in a snowdrift. Welcome to the peasant community, where you learn survival's not about me, but us, even if us makes you want to scream. Your hut, straw, smoke, and dung central, is grim, but no one beats winter alone. Your village, a scatter of wobbly huts around a field, is the last bastion against the cold. Neighbors aren't your besties. They're the guy who stole your turnips or the gossiping aunt who badmouths your mom. But when snow piles up and winds howl like demons, you need them like you need the fire. They share coals when your fire dies, bring soup when your pantry's bare, or let you crash when your roof collapses. You return the favor, not from kindness, but because you know next time you might be the one begging. Community's a survival network, but don't expect a Hallmark movie. You share, but it's not free. Everything's an unspoken deal. You give John a log, he owes you salted meat. You let Aunt Ethel sleep in your corner, she watches your kids when you're out. If you're stingy, like Will, who hid wood under straw, the village shuns you, and when your fire dies, no one helps. You learn to play nice, though you want to hoard every stick. Why? because winter doesn't care if you're selfish or generous. It kills everyone if you don't stick together. To keep spirits up, your village holds winter festivals, like Christmas or village feasts. But don't expect Coachella. Christmas is a freezing church service, everyone crammed in, shivering, singing hymns with hoarse voices. Then you gather at the headman's house, sharing black bread and thin soup, calling it a feast, but really just a reason not to go insane. You tell stories, like the salt trader chased by wolves, and laugh though your teeth chatter. Village feasts midwinter are grimmer. Everyone chips in turnips, barley, maybe meat if lucky, for a communal porridge pot. You eat, not because it's tasty, but because it reminds you the village is still alive. These gatherings are mental medicine, but drama's never far. Fights erupt when someone takes an extra scoop or when John forgets to bring wood. You've seen Aunt Ethel and Will's mom nearly brawl because Ethel claimed Will stole meat. You play peacemaker, though you want to boot them into the snow. Bigger fights are over resources, like the village's last log. Wood, coals, food are gold, and when they're scarce, the village turns into a gladiator arena. You learn to mediate, like a medieval politician, without a tie. Resolving disputes is an art. Village wood, stored for emergencies, is divvied by household. One log for families with kids, half for adults only. But when stocks dwindle, everyone wants more. You're in the middle, hearing John claim his big family needs extra, while Ethel insists she's old and frail. You suggest splitting evenly, tiny bits for all, but the village roars like you stole their cow. The headman decides, usually favoring sick households, but everyone's grumpy. You learn to live with grumbling, because unity doesn't mean happy. It means alive. Food sparks wars, too. When the village pantry's down to a few barley sacks, you meet, count heads, divide portions. But Will always claims his house is empty, though you saw him eat fresh bread. You suspect he's hoarding, but don't call him out, because drama splits the village. You propose everyone donate soup for the sick, and they agree, but glare at each other. You bring your turnip soup, though you've only 2 left, and see Ethel bring barley porridge. You know she's stingy, but stay quiet, because last week she shared coals with you. Community rituals, like Christmas, double as reconciliation. You kneel in church, praying the village survives winter, and feel less hate for John as he sings hymns beside you. After, you share weak beer, if there's any, and tell ghost stories, like dead souls wandering snow. You laugh, though it's to scare kids from going out. Village feasts are practical. You eat porridge, split wood, agree to fix Will's roof next week, though you hate him. These rituals don't erase grudges, but keep the village from fracturing. Community isn't just sharing. You patrol together, check traps, patch weak houses. You help John dig snow from his door, though he owes you turnips. You watch Ethel's kids when she's sick, though she gossips about your mom. You do it, not from love, but because a weak village means you're screwed. You've seen a nearby village, split over wood fights, nearly wiped out by winter. You don't want your house a graveyard, so you grit your teeth, share coals, and smile at enemies. But don't think community's paradise. You hate John for slacking, Ethel for gossiping, but you need them. You survive, not because you're tough, but because your village hasn't collapsed. You share, mediate, pray, like an actor in a survival play, though you just want to sleep. Now, you see communities a savior and a burden. But don't think unity beats winter. You still have to pray, sprinkle holy water, believe in demons, because faith keeps you sane. Get ready, because the story of belief's creepier than sharing wood with John. You think praying's kneeling in a warm church, holding scented candles, singing carols like a Christmas flick? Let me drag you to a medieval winter, where praying's kneeling on freezing dirt, begging God and saints to keep the fire burning, the roof intact, and your toes from turning black. You sprinkle holy water, light stubby candles, use everything, blessed chalk to whispered charms, to ward off cold and imaginary demons. Welcome to the peasant's faith, where you pray not just for your soul, but to not end up in a grave before March. Your hut, straw, smoke, and dung central, is hell, but winter makes you feel God's closer, or at least makes you beg He doesn't turn away. Faith isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline, like the fire or turnip soup. No doctors, no engineers, just belief someone upstairs hears your whining. You kneel, not from piety, but fear. Fear the cold kills the kids, the roof collapses, or demons in the wind, whispered about by the village. Come knocking. You pray, not for heaven, but to avoid the grave till spring. The village church is the hub, but don't expect a cozy Christmas Starbucks vibe. It's a stone block, roof leaking, wind sneaking through doors like an uninvited guest. You cram in with the village, shivering, singing hymns with hoarse voices. Christmas is the big ritual, but no trees or gifts. You kneel, begging God for a short winter, a steady fire, a full turnip cellar. The priest, if your village has one, sprinkles holy water on everyone, like it'll scare the cold away. You bring some home, dabbing it on your door, believing it guards against wind and demons. Though, deep down, you know wind doesn't care. Rituals aren't just in church. At home, you light candles. Not Yankee Candle vibes, but sheep fat stubs, burning weakly, smelling like burnt meat. You place them near the fire, praying to St. Nicholas, patron of homes, to keep the roof from caving. Candles are rare, so you only light them on brutal nights or when kids won't stop coughing, a reminder to God not to take them. You sprinkle blessed chalk, church powder, on doors and gaps, like a charm against drafts. Sounds silly? Maybe, but when the wind howls like demons, you'll try anything. Saints are your imaginary besties, each with a specialty. St. Nicholas, the OG Santa, is prayed to for home and kid protection. You hang a coarse cloth scrap by the door, whispering his name, hoping he keeps wolves and cold at bay. St. Martin, big in France, is your go-to for sickness. You pray to him when mom coughs blood or the family's feverish because pneumonia's a winter killer. You saw John stop coughing after a night praying to Martin, or maybe it was onion tea, but you thank the saint anyway. In England, St. Blaise is begged for throat relief because coughs are the first step to the graveyard. You don't know if saints are real, but you pray to all, like betting every slot in a survival casino. Beliefs vary by region, like winter menus. In France, St. Martin's the star, with his November 11th feast, where you eat black bread and weak beer, praying he wards off illness. In Germany, St. Barbara's begged to stop blizzards, because storms can bury villages. In Norway, faith mixes with old superstitions. You pray to God but whisper to snow spirits, fearing their wrath. You hear tips from a salt trader. In Italy, folks pray to St. Lucy for light, because winter days are short as a bad nap. You don't get it, but try it, because another saint's another shot. Superstition weaves into faith like smoke into your tunic. You believe demons live in the wind, so you hang rabbit bones on the door to scare them. You avoid midnight outings because Grandma says dead souls wander, seeking warmth. You sprinkle salt around the fire, not for soup, but to repel evil. Sounds crazy? Maybe, but when kids cough or the roof creaks, you'll believe anything. You saw Ethel sprinkle holy chalk on her cow when it stopped giving milk, and when it recovered, she called it a miracle. You roll your eyes, but don't argue. You've got sheep wool on your door for protection. Winter rituals are mental medicine, but don't melt the cold. Christmas, you sing carols, share bread, fake cheer, though your teeth chatter. St. Martin's feast, you pray sickness leaves, but still cough. St. Lucy's Day, you light candles, but light doesn't fill the turnip cellar. You do it all, not from belief, but fear. Fear of cold, disease, demons in your head. Faith's an anchor, keeping you from drifting into madness, though it's fragile as straw in wind. But rituals bind you. You stand by John in church, though you hate him for stealing turnips. You share candles with Ethel, though she's a gossip. You sing carols, voice hoarse, and feel the village like family, a messy, surviving family. You learn to forgive, not from holiness, but because a split village lets winter win. You pray, sprinkle chalk, hang bones like an actor in a superstitious play, though you just want sleep. Faith's a dim light in winter's dark. You beg God, saints, even demons, because you're not sure who's listening. You live, one prayer, one candle, like a defeated warrior who won't quit. But don't think faith beats winter. You still face death, winter's regular guest, lurking in every house, waiting for a slip. Get ready, because the story of loss is creepier than prayers in the icy wind. Winter's not a season, my friend. It's a predator. It doesn't just make you shiver in your miserable mud hut. It stalks, waiting for a misstep to snatch your whole family. The icy wind whistles through wall gaps, whispering, "Hey, I'm here." Death in winter isn't a surprise, no. It's familiar as the annoying neighbor knocking to borrow wood, except this time it's cloaked in frost and never gives anything back. You think you're used to the cold, the itchy wool, the temperamental fire? Wrong. Winter always finds a way to remind you it's the boss, and you're just a passerby, lucky to breathe till dawn. You wake one morning, breath fogging in the freezing air. The fire's down to a few glowing coals, taunting you. You glance outside, see no smoke rising from Tom's hut. Your heart sinks. Not because you like that stingy Tom, he argued with you over a stray chicken, but because you know what no smoke means. The whole village knows. Winter's won another round. You throw on your frayed wool tunic, trudge through snow, and pray you don't find what you fear. Tom's family stiff, clutching each other one last time, as if trying to hold on to warmth long gone. Winter's death doesn't discriminate. It takes kids, fragile as candles in a gale. It takes the elderly, bones creaking as they crawl from their straw bed. It takes even the strong, just because a December cough lingers with no medicine but onion tea and prayers. A single cough, my friend, can be a one-way ticket to the graveyard, if you call the frozen field a graveyard. Pneumonia's no joke, and winter's its best pal. You've seen your mom force onion tea on your sister, hoping her cough stops. You've heard Grandma mutter to St. Agnes, patron of sickness, but her lungs still rattle like a broken bellows. You know the ending, but pretend you don't, like ignoring it will make death lose your address. But it's not just illness. Winter plays dirty. Your thatch roof, your pride after days of patching with straw and rags, might collapse under heavy snow in the dead of night. You're dreaming of a hot turnip soup when crash. Your house is buried in wet straw and freezing mud. If you're lucky, you're just soaked and swearing. If not, your family's crushed and no one hears your screams in the blizzard. Or worse, the fireplace, your smoky savior, betrays you. A stray spark hits the dry thatch and your hut's a bonfire. Think a house fire in winter's an oxymoron? Think again. You bolt outside, barefoot in snow, watching your life burn to ash, wondering if it's worth going on. Frostbite's a slower, crueler killer. You've seen your uncle's toes turn black, like half-burnt charcoal. No doctor, no painkillers, just a rusty knife and a prayer. Chop it off, wrap it up, hope he doesn't fever out. You watch him hobble through winter, 2 toes short, and think, at least I've still got my straw shoes. Dark humor, right? But that's how you survive, laughing at death, even if your grin's crooked and your eyes sting. Winter funerals are no frills. The ground's hard as rock. You can't dig deep. You and a few neighbors, trembling in the wind, pry frozen dirt with pickaxes. You bury loved ones shallow, fearing strayed dogs will dig them up. No coffin. Wood's too precious. You burned it to stay warm. You wrap them in an old wool cloth, the last remnant of Grandma's cloak. You stand there, breath fogging, mumbling prayers the priest taught, but the wind drowns them out. The village gathers, not because they're free, but because they know their house could be next. You see your mom, eyes red, place a pine sprig on the grave. No flowers, they died in October. You want to cry, but tears freeze before they fall. Community keeps you from breaking. When Tom's family dies, Winter's death doesn't travel alone. You see the village step up. Widow Mary brings a bowl of turnip soup, though she's barely got enough herself. Stingy John, who fought you over wood, quietly leaves a bundle of dry twigs at Tom's door. You chip in too, though it's just a few wilted onions. No one talks much, no need. Winter teaches you sharing's not about kindness. It's because today's Tom's house, tomorrow could be yours. The memorials in the freezing church, the priest shivering through scripture. The village kneels, shoulder to shoulder, breaths mingling in the icy air. You don't catch all the Latin, but you feel it, a fragile bond like dying coals still glowing. But don't think the village is all kumbaya. You catch wary glances, whispers behind backs. Tom's house was cursed, or were they lazy with the fire? They should have patched the roof sooner. You want to punch the gossipers, but hold back. Winter doesn't just kill, it digs up the ugliest parts of you. Selfishness, fear, suspicion. You fought with John, accusing him of stealing your wood. You were wrong, but apologizing's harder than digging a grave. So, you quietly bring soup to his house when his daughter coughs blood. That's Winter. It forces you to do right, not because you want to, but because you've got no choice. Stories of Winter's deaths never end. You hear about the Great Famine of 1315, when rain ruined crops, livestock starved, and winter landed the final blow. Villagers recount, voices shaking, how people ate bark, leather shoes, even. You don't want to think further. You tell yourself you're lucky. At least you've got turnips. But every howling gust outside makes you fear. Fear this winter's your last. Fear you'll be under that pine sprig in a shallow grave with the village muttering prayers over you. Death's not just an end. It's part of winter. You live with it, like you live with the cow smell or the itchy wool. You keep praying, stuffing moss in wall gaps, tending the fire. But deep down, you know, death's always there, waiting for a slip. You smirk like you're tougher than it. You crack jokes about your uncle's black toes, about roofs collapsing like Netflix drama. But every night, curled in straw, you beg God, St. Agnes, or whoever's listening, that you'll still breathe come morning. And when you think you're numb to death, winter hits you with a colder truth. It's not just the wind or your breath fogging the air that's out to get you. The dirt floor under your feet, the one you thought was a friend, is quietly stealing your warmth like a silent monster. You scatter straw over it, hoping it helps, but the straw molds faster than you can replace it, and you're thrust into a new chapter of winter's nightmare, the war against the very floor of your house. You think winter's cold comes only from howling winds or breath freezing into clouds? Wrong. Your real enemy doesn't scream or rage. It's right under your feet, silent, cold, and ruthless. The packed dirt floor in your pathetic mud hut. Calling it a floor's generous, it's just flat earth, hard and icy, like hugging an Arctic glacier. You scatter straw to fool yourself it's warm, but soon the straw's moldy, reeking like a wet dog slogging through a swamp. Welcome to winter's new nightmare, battling your own floor, where every step reminds you, bitterly, that you're losing. Imagine waking up, shivering in your straw pile called a bed. The fireplace spews smoke like it's trying to cure you into cheap bacon, but at least it gives some heat. You swing your feet to the floor, hoping for anything but frost's bite. Keep dreaming. The dirt sucks warmth from your toes faster than you can curse. It's not just cold. It's a phantom beast gripping your heels, whispering, "Try surviving me." You wrap your feet in straw shoes, or rather rags tied around them, but it's useless. The chill creeps up through thin cloth, rooting in your bones. You tell yourself, "It's fine, I'm used to it." But you're not. No one gets used to a floor that's your enemy. To fight this beast, you scatter straw on the floor. Sounds simple, right? Straw's natural insulation, cheap, and you've got piles from harvest, if the Lord didn't seize it all. You spread a thick layer, feeling like you've upgraded your hut to a 5-star inn. But joy's short-lived. Straw soaks up moisture like a sponge. Rain leaks through the dripping thatch. Snowmelt seeps through wall gaps. And your floor's a mini ecosystem. Green mold, skittering bugs, and a stench like your goat bathed in sewage. You step on it, hearing squelches, wondering if it's straw or a giant roach throwing a party. You want to cry, but tears would probably freeze. Replacing straw's a whole project. You can't leave moldy straw forever unless you want the family coughing out lungs or itching like a lice festival. So, once a month, if you're diligent, you haul out the old straw, sweep the floor, and pray you don't find anything worse than bugs. Old straw isn't trashed, mind you. Wood's scarce, so you burn the moldy heap to kill pests and use the ash for fertilizer. You stand by the fire, choking on smoky mold, thinking this is medieval tech at its finest. Then you drag in fresh straw, spread it even, and feel like you've won a war. But you know, this war's just paused. Winter's not done. Depending on the region, you get creative with materials. In England, with its endless meadows, you use dry grass instead of straw. It's lighter, smells better, for a day, but molds just as fast in rain. In Germany, smarter villagers gather fallen pine needles from forests. They're tough, resist water, and smell of resin like you're camping instead of living in a cow pen. But don't get dreamy. Pine needles stab your feet worse than straw, and you'll curse every step. In the Alps, if lucky, you scavenge dry spruce branches, but hauling them home's a trek, freezing and risking the Lord's wrath for stealing from his woods. Whatever you use, the outcome's the same. The floor's still cold, still filthy, still your foe. Straw replacement's not just housework, it's a survival ritual. You start by shooing kids and goats outside, because no one needs them trampling while you sweep. You use a twig broom, scraping old straw into piles, trying not to breathe the mold dust clouding the air. If the floor's too wet, you scrape up muddy dirt, dry it, then pack it flat again. This takes all day, in bone-chilling cold, hands numb, back aching. You eye the fresh straw, thinking, "This time it'll hold." But you know it's good till the next snowfall. You spread it, tamp it down, and beg St. Nicholas it stays warm for a week. Then you call the family in, showing off your new floor like you built a palace. The kids giggle, but you catch Mom's look. She knows the cold's coming back. The dirt floor's not just cold, it's dangerous. Moisture rising from the earth breeds mold and bugs, making the family itch or cough. You've seen your sister scratch till she bleeds from lice in the straw. You burn dried thyme to repel pests, but the herb's scent only masks mold for hours. Worse, wet floors are slippery. You've tripped carrying turnip soup, spilling it all, and the family stared like you'd committed murder. You laugh it off, but want to punch the damn floor. The dirt floor's a reminder of your place. Rich folks have wooden floors, stone tiles, even wool rugs. You've got dirt that turns to mud every rain. You hear the priest talk of the king's palace, floors so shiny you see your face. You smirk, thinking, big deal, bet they don't know moldy straw's smell. But deep down, you're jealous. You want to walk on a floor that doesn't steal your warmth, doesn't reek like a barn. But dreams are dreams. You sweep, replace straw, and survive. Community sometimes helps with the dirt floor. Stingy John, next door, once lent you a bundle of dry grass when your straw ran out. You repaid with an onion, though you're still sore about his borrowed wood. Widow Mary, village elder, taught you to sprinkle wood ash on the floor to soak up dampness. It works, but your house looks like a dusty battlefield. You thank her, knowing she helped because of frozen neighbors, one less taxpayer. Winters like that, help comes, not from love, but because the village is a sinking ship. If you go down, they're next. You live with the dirt floor like you live with death or the cow stench. You replace straw, sprinkle ash, stuff grass in gaps. You curse stepping on sharp pine needles, smirk when your sister whines the floor is cold. But every night, lying down, you feel the chill crawl up from the dirt, like ghostly hands pulling you under. You curl tight in your wool tunic, pray, and tell yourself, just make it through tonight. You don't beat the dirt floor, but you survive, and that's a medieval win. But if you think the floor is your last enemy, look up. Your thatch roof, your leaky pride, is waiting to test your patience. It looks picture perfect, but one snowfall and it'll turn your hut into an indoor pool, dragging you into another winter war. You stand before your pathetic hut, admiring the thatch roof and thinking, not bad, like a medieval postcard. Golden straw bundles neatly layered, shielding your family from wind and frost. You're almost proud until the first snow hits. Your roof, your fragile hope, leaks like a broken sieve. Water drips onto the dirt floor, turning your house into a mini swamp. You curse under your breath, climb up with rags, straw, even sod, trying to patch the masterpiece betraying you. Winter, my friend, isn't just bone-chilling cold. It's a fight with the roof you once bragged about to neighbors like you were some genius architect. Thatch sounds dreamy, like a hobbit house in a kid's book. Reality? It's a nightmare dressed as art. Straw, reeds, or rushes, tightly bundled, tied to a wooden frame with willow or hemp cords. You and the family spent a week in autumn crafting this roof, hands blistered, backs aching, just so the Lord wouldn't evict you for a leaky shack. When it was done, you stood beneath, gazing skyward, feeling like you'd built a castle. But winter doesn't care about your dreams. Snow falls, melts, seeps through straw. Wind blows, sneaking through gaps, carrying snow dust. You lie on your straw bed, hearing drip drip on the floor, wondering if this is God's punishment for stealing that turnip last week. Maintaining a thatch roof in winter's an extreme sport. You can't wait till spring. Your hut'd be mud by then. So, you climb up in bone-freezing cold, hands numb, feet slipping on wet beams. You bring your arsenal, rags from old tunics, straw scavenged from the barn, willow twigs to tie it down. Patching sounds easy. Stuff straw in holes. Tie it. Done. But try balancing on a roof, wind slapping your face like a bully, hands shaking so bad you nearly drop the twigs. You shove rags in gaps, praying to St. Nicholas they hold through the next storm. For big holes, you get risky. Dig sod, muddy grass clumps from the field, and smear it on like plaster. It's heavy, prone to sliding, and you pray the roof doesn't cave in on your family. You heard neighbor John brag about his elite patching trick, weaving willow twigs into a net, layering straw, tying it like a spider web. Sounds cool, but when you tried, the twigs snapped, straw flew everywhere, and you fell into a snowbank. The village laughed for a week, calling you king of roof patching. You grinned, hiding your rage, but secretly wanted to torch the damn roof. Still, you patch, because leaks don't just wet the floor, they weaken mud walls, and if you're unlucky, your hut collapses like a gingerbread house in a fairy tale. The biggest threat isn't leaks, it's heavy snow. Snow piles up, weighing the roof like a herd of cows. You've seen Widow Mary's roof cave in at midnight, the crash echoing through the village. Her family fled to your hut, soaked, shivering, cramming in with your goat and kids. You gave them the fire's corner, though you barely had warmth to spare. Next morning, the village rallied, helping Mary rebuild, not from pity, but because everyone fears their house is next. You stared at the wrecked straw, vowing to check your roof often. So, after every snowfall, you grab a long pole, poke the roof to shove snow off, cursing the cold. Once, snow slid right down your neck, so cold you thought you'd turn to ice. You smirked, wiped it off, kept going, because quitting means losing. A collapsed roof's not just a physical disaster, it's a gut punch. You poured sweat, blood, literally from cuts tying straw, and faith into that roof. When it fails, it feels like the world's laughing. You recall your uncle's roof caving, his family fleeing to John's. John, who your uncle loathes over that stray chicken. Your uncle stood at John's door, drenched, face red with shame, begging to stay. John smirked, saying, "Patch your roof sooner next time." You wanted to deck him, but couldn't. Winter makes you swallow pride, because survival trumps ego. You helped your uncle clear the wrecked straw, rebuild, and swore, "My house won't end like this." But you know winter makes no promises. Roof maintenance is a war with weather and resources. Straw's scarce in winter. You can't cut more when snow's knee-deep. So you stockpile in autumn, storing it in the barn, praying Bessie the cow doesn't eat it. Rags are easier, but your family's got few spare tunics, and you need them to wear, not patch roofs. Once you snuck your mom's tunic, cut it for rags, and got chewed out for a week. She said, "Patch the roof, fine, but I can't replace my tunic." You laughed it off, but knew she was right. Everything in your house is gold, from willow twigs to rag scraps. Community sometimes saves you from the roof nightmare. Widow Mary taught you to smear sheep fat on straw to repel water. Gross, but it works. Stingy John lent you a straw bundle when your roof leaked like a waterfall. You repaid with an onion, though you're still mad about his borrowed wood. The village knows his never-leaky roof's a lie. Every roof leaks, but no one calls him out, because winter's no time for drama. You learn helping each other's not about kindness, it's because the village is a wobbly boat. One house sinks, everyone drowns. The thatch roof's a symbol of your grit and failure. You patch it, maintain it, pray for it. You're proud when it holds through a storm, but know it can betray you any time. Every drip's a reminder. You don't control winter. You smirk, stuff more straw in gaps, and think, just get through tonight. But deep down, you're scared. Scared of collapse, leaks, your family soaked in coughing blood. You don't beat the roof, but you patch, tie, climb in freezing wind, because that's how you survive. And when you think the roof's your final hurdle, think of your kids. They don't get to whine or skip chores. Winter turns them into tiny warriors, tending fires, patching gaps, eating turnips they hate. They're your hope, but also a bitter reminder that winter spares no one, not even the smallest souls. You look at your kids in your miserable mud hut, faces smudged, noses red from cold, and think, welcome to winter, where childhood's a bitter joke. No coddling, no toys, no naps. Winter doesn't care if they're 5 or 7. It slaps them like it slaps you, with biting cold and a cruel whisper. Work or freeze? So your kids, your tiny warriors, grab sticks to tend the fire, stuff rags in wall gaps, and choke down rock-hard turnips with grimaces. You want to hug them? Say it'll be okay, but you don't lie. Winter teaches them, and you, that survival's the only lesson worth learning. Your hut's the harshest school. At dawn, when breath fogs in the icy air, you nudge little Tom, just 6, to check the fireplace. He glares, eyes stinging from smoke, but drags himself over, poking coals with a twig. "Keep the fire going, Tom," you bark, voice rough as the dirt floor. He nods, though you know he'd rather curl up in straw. But there's no choice. Fire dies, family dies. You watch him, tiny in his patched wool tunic, and feel your heart twist. But you swallow it. Winter doesn't want sappy feelings. It wants glowing coals and working hands. Kids don't just tend fires. They stuff rags in wall gaps where wind mocks the family. Little Mary, 4, toddles with a scrap of old wool, trying to plug a fist-sized hole. She drops it, cries, but you just say, "Do it again." Harsh? Maybe. But you know an open gap lets cold in, and Mary's the first to cough blood. So she wipes tears, stuffs it back, and you nod, like she's won a medieval Nobel. You teach them every gap's an enemy, every rag a shield. They learn fast, faster than you'd like, because winter doesn't tolerate slowpokes. Mealtime's another battle. You set a plate of boiled turnips before the kids, hard as wood, smelling like a curse. Tom grimaces, muttering, "Turnips again." You glare. "Eat, or you'll shiver till dawn." He bites, face twisting like he's chewing dirt. You want to laugh, but don't. You hate turnips too, but they're the only thing between you and starvation. You spin tales, saying turnips are knights' food, but the kids aren't fooled. They know knights eat pork, while you've got turnips and prayers. Still, they swallow, bite by bite, like little soldiers fighting their own stomachs. Winter doesn't just teach kids work, it teaches survival. You drag Tom outside, point at the gray sky, and say, "Watch the wind, son." It shifts. Snow's coming. Tom nods, squinting, trying to spot your signs. You teach him a colder breeze on his cheek means a storm's near, or thick frost on branches means a bone-chilling night. Mary learns to read fireplace smoke. Straight up, weather's fine. Swirling, patch the roof. You watch their young, sharp eyes, wondering if you're stealing their childhood. But then, you remember, childhood's a luxury, survival's mandatory. Kids don't just learn, they play, winter style. You see Tom and his pals in the field, hurling snowballs, pretending to be knights versus dragons. They shout, laugh, breath-fogging, like the cold doesn't exist. You want to yell them inside because wet tunics mean coughs, but you pause. Let them play just a bit. Snowballs fly, Tom declares himself Snow King, then eats a faceful of snow from a neighbor kid. You smirk, thinking, "Good, learn to lose early, kid." These games aren't pointless. They teach reflexes, cold endurance, and laughing despite frozen faces. Once they built a snow castle, really a lumpy pile, defending it like it's real, screaming when goats trampled it. You watch, half sad, half amused, their snow castle's sturdier than your hut. Indoors, kids invent other games. Mary grabs a dry stick, swinging it like a sword, fighting the goat-munching straw. Tom spins ghost stories, voice low and dramatic, scaring Mary till she burrows into you. You scold Tom, but know these tales aren't just fun. They teach kids to fear the dark, the howling wind, to be careful tending fires. One night they play Chase the Demon, running around the fireplace, yelping at their shadows on the wall. You snap, quiet, let adults sleep. But you let them play, because their laughter drowns the wind's howl outside. You teach kids survival skills like their family heirlooms. You show Tom how to spot frost. If grass glitters like broken glass, tonight's brutal. You teach Mary to check floor straw. If it's damp, replace it, or bugs throw a party. You lead them to the barn, showing how to pat Bessie the cow to lie near the wall, radiating heat for all. They learn, not from want, but need. You watch Tom poke coals, face smudged, and recall yourself at his age, shivering by the fire for Dad. You want better for them, a childhood of cakes and soft beds, but winter doesn't allow dreams. Kids aren't just burdens, they're allies. When you're beat from shoveling snow, Tom drags in dry twigs, face red from cold. When you're coughing blood, Mary toddles with onion tea Mom made, spilling half. They're small, but they get it. Winter's the enemy. You see them whisper, betting who tends the fire longest, prize a less moldy turnip. You smirk, thinking, smart kids, they'll con the Lord someday. But you're scared too. Scared they'll grow up in this cold, knowing only turnips and smoke, blind to a kinder world. The community leans on kids too. Stingy John once sent Tom to Widow Mary's with wood when she was coughing bad. Mary helped the widow's kids patch wall gaps, earning a bowl of thin soup. Kids are the village's pulse, carrying messages, sharing coals. sometimes rare joy. You see them in the field playing snow war, and the village watches, smiling, forgetting the cold for a moment. But you know, they play, but they're ready to work. Winter makes them adults before they grow up. Kids are hope, but a bitter reminder. Every cough from Tom, you fear pneumonia. Every shiver from Mary in her thin tunic, you dread death's shadow. You teach them to tend fires, patch gaps, eat turnips, but you can't teach them not to fear. You see Tom's eyes when the wind howls, a tiny warrior's gaze, knowing winter can steal everything. You smirk, pat his shoulder, say, "Good fire tending, son." But inside, you beg God, St. Agnes, anyone, that they'll see spring. And when you think kids are the final challenge, remember, winter doesn't just steal warmth, it steals health. A December cough can mean a January funeral, and you've got no doctor, just onion tea and prayers. Disease, the silent hunter, waits for your slip, ready to drag the family into icy darkness. You cough once in December, a small hack, and the family stares like you've signed a death warrant. Winter doesn't mess around with illness, my friend. A cough can be a one-way ticket to a January grave, and you've got no doctor, no antibiotics, just grandma's pungent onion tea and prayers worn thin from begging God. Frostbite? Simpler. Black toes get hacked off with a rusty knife, wrapped up, and you hope fever doesn't kill you. Welcome to medieval medicine, where disease is a stealthy predator, stalking your miserable mud hut, waiting for a fumble to pull everyone under. You smirk, sip onion tea, and think, just get through tonight. But deep down, you know, winter always wins, unless you're smarter than it. Your hut's a disease incubator. The damp dirt floor breeds mold, the leaky roof drips, and everyone's crammed like sardines, breathing smoky, cow-scented air. You shiver in your frayed wool, coughing, feeling your lungs burn like dying coals. Pneumonia's the top killer, my friend. It starts with a dry cough, turns to wheezing, and before you can pray to St. Agnes, you're flat out, feverish, dreaming of hot turnips. You see little Mary, 4, hacking in the corner, and your heart clenches. No hospital, no ventilator, just you, Mom, and a pot of onion tea simmering on the fickle fireplace. Onion tea's grandma's miracle drug, hated more than boiled turnips. You watch her slice onions, eyes streaming, then boil them with water and a pinch of dried thyme, if any's left. The brew's so acrid you think it could banish demons, but Grandma forces you to drink, saying, "Swallow, or your lungs will be soup." You grimace, gulping it down, feeling like you're chewing an onion field. Funny? Wait till you're coughing green phlegm. You'll thank her. Time's the village's ace, my friend. Mom dries it in summer, hoards it like gold, for tea to ease coughs. It won't cure pneumonia, but makes breathing easier, and sometimes breathing's enough to last the night. Folk remedies aren't just onion tea. You've seen Mom rub sheep fat on Tom's chest, the 6-year-old when he coughs dry. The fat's warm, reeks, and you joke Tom's a living candle. But Mom doesn't laugh. She knows dry coughs can kill. Once, neighbor Mary taught you to make syrup from dandelion roots, boiled with honey stolen from a forest hive. Sounds fancy? Don't kid yourself. Honey's rarer than gold, and the syrup lasts a day. You give it to Mary, praying it helps. But you know, remedies are bottled hope, not magic. Frostbite's another beast, crueler. You've seen your uncle's fingers blacken like charred stubs. No painkillers, no anesthesia. You hold his hand, Mom grabs a rusty knife, and everyone prays. Slice. Blood flows, he screams. You want to puke. Then Mom wraps the wound with rare clean rags and burns time to banish evil. You look at your uncle, pale, and think, at least he's alive. But what's living like this? He limps through winter, 3 fingers gone, and you vow to tie your straw shoes tighter. Dark humor, right? But you laugh at disease, even if your smile's twisted. Isolating the sick in a hut, small as a matchbox, is a bitter joke. No spare rooms, no doors. When Mary coughs hard, you hang an old torn cowhide to section her corner. Laughable? The hide's thin as paper, her coughs echo. You tell Tom to sleep far from her, but he crawls back, scared she'll freeze. You yell, but know he's right. Warmth trumps isolation. To stop spread, Mom burns pine twigs, hoping smoke kills bad air. Science? Nope. Desperation? Absolutely. You wipe Mary's floor spot with a wet rag, though the dirt molds instantly. You do everything, not because it works, but because doing nothing makes you lose it. Community's a light in the disease nightmare. When Mary's cough worsens, Widow Mary brings turnip soup, though she's scraping by. Stingy John, who you hate over the wood thing, leaves a time bundle at your door. You want to thank him, but pride stops you. Winter forces you to accept help, even if it stings. The village takes turns tending the sick, like when Widow Mary's daughter died from pneumonia. You brought soup, Tom hauled wood, and the village gathered in the icy church, praying for the girl's soul. No one says much, but you feel it. The village is one, because disease doesn't pick favorites. But don't think community's utopia. You hear whispers, your house is cursed, or you skimped on time. Mary's sick because her mom didn't make enough onion tea. You want to slug the gossipers, but hold back. Winter unearths the worst, doubt, selfishness. You've accused John of stealing your time. You were wrong, but saw him bring tea to Mary and shut up, ashamed. You bring soup to his house when his kid fevers, not from liking him, but because Winter says, today it's him, tomorrow, maybe you. Disease isn't just coughs or black toes. It's a reminder of your fragility. You pray, burn herbs, brew tea, but you're scared. Scared Mary won't make it. Scared Tom coughs next. Scared you'll lie there, lungs rattling, with the family watching like you watched your uncle. You smirk, tell Tom, drink the onion tea, don't make Mom mad. But at night you hold Mary, feeling her chest heave, begging God, St. Agnes, anyone, that she breathes till morning. Disease is a hunter, but you're stubborn prey. You brew tea, rub fat, chop toes. You take soup from neighbors, though pride screams. You survive, not from strength, but no choice. But don't think disease is winter's last jab. Everything you do, tending fires, curing coughs, builds a legacy bigger than you. Those nights you survive, remedies you learn, laughs you force through sickness. They're the foundation for today's world, where folks sit in warm armchairs, clueless their ancestors fought winter's predator, just for them to have this day. You're sitting here in a toasty apartment with a humming electric heater, scrolling your phone, griping about laggy Wi-Fi. But listen, that comfy chair, hot tea, and cheap heater didn't just appear. They're the legacy of medieval peasants, reeking of turnips, living in miserable mud huts, battling winter like it's the final boss in a video game. They had no Amazon for electric blankets, no CVS for cough syrup, just grit, some clever hacks, and a pile of mud to keep the wind out. Every night they survived was a middle finger to death, and those winds paved the way for your cushy life today. You smirk, thinking, thanks, ancestors, but bet you never bathed. Don't laugh yet. Their legacy, from crude fireplaces to tight-knit villages, is the bedrock of your world, even if you barely notice. Picture yourself as a medieval peasant, shivering in a hut thin as cardboard. Wind howls outside like it's streaming drama live, the roof leaks, and the dirt floor's cold as an ice rink. The fireplace, your backstabbing pal, spews smoke, making you cough like your lungs are quitting. But you don't fold. You stuff moss in wall gaps, smear mud on the roof, tend the fire at 3 a.m., eyes burning like you watched a tearjerker. You cook turnip soup from 3 wilted roots, share it with the family, and smirk when little Tom grimaces. Turnips again? Every day you survive's an invisible medal, worn with bitter pride, knowing winter's testing you tomorrow. Your fireplace, despite its flaws, is the seed of modern tech. You stack stones around it to trap heat, learn to bury coals and ash to keep fire alive overnight, a trick you call fire banking, and brag about to neighbors like you hacked NASA. By the 12th century, villagers got savvier, building brick fireplaces with crude chimneys to vent smoke. You're jealous of John's brick hearth because he doesn't cough blood every morning, but you know those bricks are ancestors of the gas heater you flick on each winter. You sit by your modern heater, whining it's too warm. Clueless you owe those wretched peasants who cursed when smoke hit their faces. Your walls, mud, twigs, and a dash of cow dung for flair are architecture's first steps. You slap mud on, shivering but proud, because it blocks the wind. This wattle and daub trick taught humans to build with cheap dirt. Later, the wealthy used stone walls, stacking rocks like a grim puzzle. No mortar needed. You helped your uncle build a stone wall, hands bleeding, just for him to boast to the village. But those walls, standing through blizzards, are kin to the brick house you live in now. You drive through suburbs, eyeing red brick homes, not knowing each brick's a nod to medieval mud. Your ingenuity doesn't stop at fireplaces or walls. You store turnips in dirt cellars, dry fish for winter, use hot stones to warm beds, though you nearly burn your tunic. You brew thyme tea for coughs, rub sheep fat on Tom's wheezing chest. Each trick's a small win, like you outsmarted winter. These hacks spread through villages, like ancient Instagram trends, and became foundations for later tech. Dirt cellars led to fridges, thyme tea to cough syrups, hot stones to electric heaters. You smirk, thinking, I'm medieval Elon Musk, minus Twitter. But your biggest legacy's community. You hate John for borrowing wood he never returned, but when his fire dies, you bring coals, though pride screams. You share turnip soup with Widow Mary, though your stomach growls. The village, from kids tending fires to coughing elders, helps each other through winter, not from kindness, but because alone, you're dead. These villages with shared fires and prayers are seeds of modern towns. You cruise Main Street, seeing old stone churches and bakeries, not knowing they started in mud huts where you shared turnips with your enemy neighbor. Your village is a survival system. You build huts close, share straw, take turns cooking soup when someone's coughing blood. When Widow Mary's daughter dies from pneumonia, the village gathers, praying in the icy church, bringing wood for her. You help, not from pity, but knowing. Today it's her, tomorrow maybe you. These villages grew into towns with markets, schools, councils. You walk Main Street, seeing Christmas lights and kids in snow. Clueless, it's a legacy from nights you crammed with the village to not freeze. Your legacy's resilience. You patch roofs in storms, tend fires with drooping eyes, laugh at disease when little Mary coughs hard. You teach Tom to plug gaps, eat turnips, pray to St. Agnes. Every night survives a win, like beating Dark Souls' final level. This stubbornness passed through generations, leading to skyscraper builders, heater inventors, survivors of every challenge. You flip on your heater, grumbling it's dry, not knowing your ancestors smirked surviving frigid nights. Your story, medieval peasant, doesn't end in the mud hut. It lives in every spring you see, every kid you raise, every trick you pass down. You didn't know, but those nights you survived sowed seeds for today's world, where my audience, yep, you guys, sits cozy, scrolling phones, maybe never eating turnips. But think, have you ever thanked your heater, brick house, or hot coffee? That's the legacy of those reeking peasants who smirked at winter and said, try killing me. So folks, next time you whine about cold or a busted heater, picture yourself in a mud hut, tending fires, stuffing moss, sharing turnips with a neighbor you hate. What would you do? Give up or smirk and fight? I bet you'd fight, because you've got a spark of that medieval mud grit. Tell me in the comments, how'd you survive as a peasant back then? And don't say you'd order a heater on Amazon. No Wi-Fi? Your story's done, peasant, but your legacy burns on, like coals in a winter hearth.